All right, so this is Paragon Advanced. My name is Chris Peterson. I work here at the MLS. We're going to look at creating a CMA and easy CMA. We'll also look at adding a contact and setting them up for notification in the Collab Center. Real quick, just kind of talk about the handouts that are there. You've got the handout. That's the evaluation from the Real Estate Commission, because there's 2 CE credits for this afternoon. Later on, after we're done with class, that's when they'll submit the information to the commission and send out an email with your certificate in it. You've also got the printout or the handout that kind of goes through how to do all these things. On the handout, it says creating an easy CMA, but it really has all 3 of those things in there. And then you've also got a printout of a property on Pintail and Meridian that we're going to use as our subject property this afternoon. So before we jump in and kind of start talking about easy CMA, do you guys have any questions you want to make sure we talk about today? All right, so we'll go through it. If you have questions, obviously you can ask those. So Easy CMA is something Paragon launched about a year or so ago, and it's called Easy CMA primarily because it has something called the comp engine that finds comparables for you. Now, the caveat with the comp engine is it's only going to work where there's property activity. So Ada and Canyon County, it will work okay. The hard thing with the comp engine is that it uses proximity to find the comparables. So if you've got a situation where you've got a subject property in an existing neighborhood that's near like next door to a new construction neighborhood, it's going to pull those new construction properties in. And so you also could just go into Paragon and run your own search and then send your own comparables you find to Easy CMA. So you can do it either way. And we'll look at doing it both ways. We'll go through one CMA using the comp engine, then we'll see how to add our own comparables later on. We won't go through it twice, but we'll see that. The Easy CMA is based in Paragon Connect, which is the mobile access to Paragon. So you technically could do it on your phone as well, but it's easier, I think, on a computer with a keyboard and a mouse. So we're going to go to it that way. So if you're not already, we want to be in Paragon. And to get to Easy CMA, from the Paragon homepage, we just want to go here to the CMA menu and then go to where it says Create an Easy CMA, which is the bottom of the left side of the menu there. And you'll notice that pops up Paragon Connect. And if you've created CMAs using Easy CMA, you'll see those here. If you haven't, that's fine. And before we create our CMA and hit continue here, you can just go ahead and cancel the subject property section. We'll bring that up here in a minute. But we want to talk about the settings in Easy CMA. So up here at the top, you've got 2 tabs, CMA reports and settings. So you want to go here to settings. And there aren't a lot of settings in Easy CMA. That's one of the other reasons it's called Easy CMA, because it doesn't have a lot of different things to add in there. And the first one here is adjustment defaults. What this lets you do is if you have adjustment values that you want to put in there, you can put in there to use those as default values. The MLS does not have any numbers for these, and I don't know anybody that uses these because things aren't the same. A 3-car garage in Meridian isn't the same as a 3-car garage in Cuna, isn't the same as a 3-car garage in Nampa, and so garage capacity would not be equal in those 3 places, which is why adjustment defaults aren't really used in our MLS, in our areas. I had someone say, well, where do they use this? Well, in California, in Orange County, where they don't have a lot of new construction and homes have existed for 30, 40, 50 years, things are the same. And so adjustment defaults, if you're only in the same place, like if you only worked in the north end and that's all you did, that would work. The trick with adjustment defaults, like making regular adjustments, you have to have a way to come up with the value. The MLS doesn't have a resource for that. An appraiser would be a good resource. But the way adjustment defaults would work is if you had those turned on, instead of having to put a dollar value in for an adjustment, I would put like +1 on garage capacity, and then it would add in the amount that I've set as my default. So that's how that would work, but again, it's not something that gets used very much in our MLS. The second one here says comparable properties under the settings, and there's 2 choices here. There's the public records. It says include public record comparables. That one should be off by default. We're a non-disclosure state. There are no public record comparables. In a disclosure state, if there were sold properties that were part of the public record, turning this on would let you include those in your search, but we don't have those. The other one says keep comp data live, automatically reflect changes to comp status and price, and that you want to have turned on. So one of the main ways of sharing your CMA in Easy CMA is as a link. And so when someone clicks on the link, they view it as a web page, and if this is turned on, if the properties have a status or price change, it'll update that on their CMA. So let's say you've got a property that's pending that uses a comparable and it closes today. When they click on that link tomorrow, instead of saying pending, it would say sold and have the sold price. So that's what that's for. And it's a global setting, so it's not like per CMA. So it's either going to be live for all of them or not live for all of them. So I would recommend leaving it on. That way if things are updated, they would see that. The third one here is the CMA introduction. That's also something someone might call a cover letter. If there isn't anything there already, you can create your own or copy and paste it from somewhere else. On each individual CMA that you create, you can edit it, but here you're kind of setting the default cover letter. And I think I copied mine from Cloud CMA, but you can get them from lots of other places. So it does have a limited amount of characters, so you want to keep that in mind. Document library was something they recently added to Easy CMA, and essentially what this lets you do is upload documents. So I could come here, click on the plus, go choose the file. PDFs are all they allow. Then I could upload it. So like maybe I've got an example net sheet from a title company. I upload it in there so I can include it and show it to my potential sellers. So that's the document library. And then to go back to the settings, I can just click on the back button on my browser, and now I'm back to the settings, or to the Easy CMA. So back here in settings, the next one is the CMA footer, which goes at the bottom of the CMA that you create. And as Easy CMA is shared as a link, it's essentially one long page, and so this just goes at the bottom. So typically it's going to be about you or your brokerage. It's not going to be about the actual property, because it would be the same for any CMA you create. But it lets you type something in there. I want to say it gives you 1,000 characters, because I think I'm pretty close to 62 characters there, I think. So anyway, that's the footer, the CMA footer. The last one is provide feedback. It lets you provide feedback to the developers. Everyone always asks, is it worth doing that? I would say yes for two reasons. First, if there's a bug and everybody reports the same bug, they're going to fix it quicker. And if everyone requests the same feature, they're going to add it quicker. Now, the one thing I will say is we don't program this stuff here at the MLS, Intermountain MLS. We don't program Paragon. It's a national company. They have lots of MLSs that use Paragon, just like there's other MLS companies in the world. So if you've got a unique feature that you want and you're the only one that asks for it, it probably will not get made. But if a lot of people are asking for something, they add those things in there. Like I said, document library is something they've only added in the last month or so. So I think probably enough people requested that option that they added it in there. So that's the settings, and you can always come back and change them when you want. Any questions on those at all? Okay. So we're going to go back here to CMA reports, and we're just going to walk through creating a CMA. Again, we have a printout of our subject property, so it makes it really easy to use here. And so to create a CMA, we want to click on the plus down here on the bottom right, and it will bring up that same little screen option we had before. We can use an address search or a listing ID. We're going to do an address search. And then you want to put in the subject property address. So this one is 1850 West Pintail Drive. And you'll notice as I type in 1850W, it uses Google and finds that address. So I'm going to select it here. And then it's going to come up on a map and have us verify the location. I'm pretty sure that's where this is. I don't really remember where I saw it, but if it was in the wrong place, you could move the marker, but we're going to assume that's where this is. And then if you have the marker in the correct spot, then you just want to hit confirm up on the right. And then it's going to pull in public record data, and it's going to have a Google Street View view of the property. And so here I can scroll down, see the address, the city, the zip code, 3-bed, 2-bath, 1662 square feet, which matches everything that's on the listing here. If it was incorrect, of course, I could go in and update it to make it correct, but that looks the same as it's on our listing. And then we can just hit next. And then it's going to use the comp engine to find comparables. So it's going to try to find properties near the subject property. And 10 is the number it always brings up. And it's going to show them on a map up here at the top. And then right below the map, there are 3 buttons, and we'll talk about those first, and then we'll look at the properties. First, you have Edit Comp Order. So what this lets you do is go in and change the order of the comps. Like maybe I want all the pendings together and the active above the pendings. So I move my pending listing up here with the others, and then I move my active up to the top. There isn't a way just to click on like sort by status or something. You have to manually sort them. And now when I hit save, now that's the order they're going to be in. There's that active property is the first one there. Manually enter comp would let you use an address or an MLS number to add a comparable. You can only add comparables from the MLS. There isn't a way to add comparables that aren't in the MLS. And then you have generate new comps. So maybe you look at the comp list that's provided and it's not what you want. You can go to generate new comps and you can kind of modify the criteria. Like maybe you want to go back just the last 90 days instead of 6 months or whatever it's doing. You can change bathrooms, bedrooms, square footage, lot size. The one thing that's not here that I think would be useful, at least in our MLS, is age. Because age would let you eliminate new construction, which doesn't have age here. But generate new comps would use your modify criteria and find additional comparables, and it would still give you 10. So you essentially would remove ones and get other ones in there. And then when you're looking at the comparables, if you click on a property like the picture, that'll bring up a detail view. And because this is Paragon Connect, it's an agent tool. If you go on the property information to show more, you're going to see all the information there. To go back to your list, you just click on the X on the left to close that property. And if I go down here, for example, to a sold property, when I scroll down to the bottom of the property detail section, that's where I can see the sold information, like when did it close, what was the sold price, and I can see all that information. Like this one had $5,000 in closing cost contributions.
So pretty much gives you what you get if you look at the sold on.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because I mean it's Paragon. It's Paragon Connect, but it's the same information that's in Paragon. Yep. And then if you wanted to do an adjustment for a property, you'd click on Adjustments and Notes. And then to make an adjustment, you'd come up with the dollar value that you're adjusting, and then you'd put it in here. So for example, this comparable has less square feet than my subject property. So if I was going to make an adjustment there, I'd come up with what the $300 square foot difference would be. And since this one has less, I would need to make it positive. So let's say I've come up with a number for that square footage difference. So then when I hit save, now it adds a positive amount there and adjusts the property that much. And if it was going to be a negative adjustment, you just put a minus before it. You don't have to do adjustments, but that's how you would do those if you were going to do them.
So it will automatically be positive unless you put a negative.
Right. If you don't put a negative there, it's going to think it's a positive adjustment. And you're always adjusting the comparable to make it equal to the subject property. And then if there's a comparable you don't want to use, then you can just click remove. That removes it as one of your comparables and puts it down at the bottom in this removed comp section. And then if I hit select, then that throws it back in with my comparables.
So you have a list of default adjustments,
Those were just in the preferences. I didn't put those in there.
but those don't take effect anywhere. It's just
Well, and they're not specific to our MLS or any actual real values.
I understand that.
But yeah.
If you're putting them in somewhere, I guess I would assume that they're going to be relevant somewhere. But
Right. So yeah, if I had those in there, then I could come here to the adjustments and notes, and instead of putting like a plus or minus here, I could just put for example, I could put a 1 in there. Well, let's go to the garage capacity. That makes it easier. If I put a 1 in here, then whatever value my garage capacity difference would be, it would add that positive value here.
okay.
So if you had come up with those adjustment values and put that in there, then instead of typing the number for the value in here, you would type the quantity of the number of the value. So, but that's the hard part, is coming up with what that value is going to be. So, and that's why, I mean, you don't have to do adjustments. I mean, appraisers have thousands of hours as appraiser trainees. Becoming an appraiser, becoming a real estate agent is a different process, and so you have a different skill set than what appraisers have. So, and not to say that that adjustments aren't useful. It's just there's a lot of, well, it's math. There's a lot of math into creating adjustments. The tool appraisers use the math. It's called matched pairs, I have no idea how that works. I'm not an appraiser. I'm not a mathematician, but it's not taking price per square foot and timesing by the difference. When agents do that, that's wrong. I mean, that's not going to work. I mean, the best example in thinking how that doesn't work is look at a house with a bonus room above the garage. That price per square foot accounts for all the square footage the same. The bonus room was made by calling the truss company and saying, put a hole in the trusses. Whereas if the square footage difference is a bathroom or a kitchen, you have to have skilled, licensed craftsmen come in, do plumbing and electrical for that room. And the bonus room above the garage didn't need that. And so there's adjustments are a complicated thing. And like, if you make adjustments, someone along the way is going to want to know how you came up with that. But anyway, so let's say those are the comps we want. Obviously, if they weren't, you would remove them, and later on we'll look at how to find our own comps. But then you just hit generate CMA, and that creates it. So when you're viewing it as the agent, you still can edit things here. But when you send it to someone, it's going to look the same, but they won't have the ability to edit it. So for example, you'll notice that the Google Street View is a side view of this property. So if I had a picture of the front of the property I wanted to use, or a better picture, I can click on the little picture icon here, and I could upload my own photo. When you upload your photo, not only will it be here at the top of the report, it'll also be in the side-by-side report, which until you add one, there isn't going to be a picture there.
Laugh because my license came up.
Then we've got the address, the date the report was generated, and your cover letter, your introduction. So edit introduction would let you make changes there. And as long as you don't check set as default, you're only changing the one for this property. If you check set as default, you're changing your setting and this one. And then you've got the suggested price based on the comparables. So it's just taking the price per square foot, low and high, and timesing it by the square footage of the subject property. That's where that number's coming from. So if you want to edit it, like maybe this subject property hasn't had some of the upgrades the comparables have, I could come here and edit the information. Like maybe I think the price should be $425, and I think the range should be $412 to $429 or something. And then when I save it, it's going to use my information instead of what came from the comps. And then you've got the property details. Edit property would take us back to that first step where we enter the subject property. And then you've got the map of the comparables, and it has a little legend down here with what the colors mean. And then if you click on the side-by-side view tab, now you've got the subject property, which if I had uploaded the picture, there would be a picture here. But then you can scroll through comparing the subject to those comparables. And then edit comparables would take you back to edit the comparables. And if you're on the map view, below the map, you've got the individual comparables there. Then you've got the high, low, average, sold price, average list price based on the comparables. Then you have the statistics by status, and then it lists them by status. And then you have the AVM. AVM stands for Automated Valuation Model. You can click on the little I here to get information. It just explains what that is. Easy Value is from Paragon. The RVM stands for Realtors Valuation Model, is from RPR, which is a tool that NAR provides. And then you've got your agent image, your contact information, your company logo, and then that footer down there at the bottom. And then to share the Easy CMA, there's a share button right here. Now before we share it, a couple other things you can do is up on the top right, there's this little menu. You can assign a contact, upload documents, and print this Easy CMA. Assigning a contact just lets you pick one of your contacts that are in Paragon. You don't have a way to add a contact here though. So they would have to be a contact already. But let's say I wanted to assign it to Taylor Bice. Now when I hit assign, what that's going to do is right below the address, it will say created for, and then their name. And then it will be linked to their contact record in Paragon Connect. If I didn't want to share this as a link and maybe I wanted to print it out or download it as a PDF to send as an attachment, also under more is print, and that will create a PDF that you can download, save to your computer locally, share it as an attachment or whatever you want to do. The documents is just like in the settings, adding individual documents to this property instead of adding them into your settings. So a couple of things that EasyCMA doesn't have, that like Cloud CMA and some other programs have. It doesn't have a way to have themes, and other than the documents you can upload, it doesn't have any other reports to be included. So here is the created PDF. It's 6 pages long. And as I scroll through here, we can see it. So there's the cover page. There's the introduction with the agent information and the cover letter. There's the map of the comparables. Then there's the side-by-side of the comparables. There's the summary with the information that I put in there for the price and the range. And that's the last page. So it doesn't have the actual individual pictures of the comparables, and it doesn't have the AVMs on there. But other than that, it's got the same kind of information that we had before. And then to share it as a link, you just click on the share button right here. Now, if I was on my phone using Paragon Connect, I would also have an option to text it, but I'm not, so I don't have a text option here. But I can click Email CMA, and then it's going to come up and let you put in someone's email address, or if they're one of your contacts, it will remember their information. You can put a subject in there, you can add a message if you want, and then you can just send it, and it will say email sent. And then I'm going to bring up my fake person's email here. So here's the email right here. Just like when you email from Paragon, it comes from Paragon email service. So here's the email they get. There's their address, the price and range, and then they hit view full report. And there we've got the report we just looked at, except they don't have any option to edit it. So there's the introduction, the suggested price, the map view with the list with the comparables, or the side-by-side view, and then the statistics and the AVMs there. And so that's sharing the EasyCMA once you create it. Questions, comments, concerns about that? Now, like I said, where there's activity, it'll work pretty well. One thing that's nice about EasyCMA is, let's say you've got someone who is thinking about listing their home the next year, but they're not sure. If I was an agent, I would not want to spend very much time on that person. And so EasyCMA makes it really quick to be able to send them a report without spending half a day finding comparables for them, because it finds those comps for you. Again, in places like Gem County or even Elmore County where there's less activity, your mileage may vary. It's just going to depend on what it can find. And that's why you can go into Paragon and do your own search and then add those in there. So that's what we're going to go through next here. So I'm just going to close my EasyCMA tab just to get back here to Paragon. And so this is the reason why we've got this printout of this property on Pintail, is so we can use it in our search. You can follow along and do the same search I do. You can do your own search. The thing to remember with searching for comparables is there's no magic formula. It's whatever criteria you want to put in there. So the criteria that I use may not be something someone else has used, that someone else uses, and that's fine. So since this is a residential property, that's the kind of search we'd want to do. So we want to go up here to search and then residential. And then it's going to bring up our criteria screen. Now I will tell you, before we even put criteria in here, I'm going to use the mapping to find comparables. So I'm not going to put in like an area or a city or anything, but I'm going to put in the other items. So I'm going to go here to status, and I'm going to look for actives, pendings, and solds. This property is single family, so I'm going to choose single family. This property is 3-bed, 2-bath, so maybe I'm going to do 3 to 5 beds, 2 to 3 baths. It's 1662 square feet, so maybe I'll look between 1,300 and 2,000 square feet. Now, if that's too much, I can always narrow it down. If it wasn't enough, I can broaden it. And then I only want to go back 6 months on my solds. So to the right of where it says closing date and says date range, I'm just going to pick 6 months back. And then I'm going to go here to age. And this property is 21 to 30 years, so I'm going to use 21 to 30. I'm also going to do 11 to 20 and 31 to 50, the one above and the one below. Again, if I get too many, I can narrow it down. But I'm going to do a mile radius around this subject property, so it's only going to find properties within a mile anyway. So it's not going to find properties like all over Meridian or anything. So I just went to age and put in 21 to 30, which is the age for this property, and then the one above and the one below this age range. But again, you can do it however you want, because that still brings up 1,400 properties for me right now. And again, that's because I haven't put a location in there. Once we do a mile from the subject property, that'll decrease dramatically. But as far as other parameters you want to put in there, some people like to put level in there. This property is single level, so maybe somebody would want to put single level in there. It's up to you what you want to put in there. I mean, I'm of the mindset I'd put the least amount and then add more criteria to narrow it down if I need to. Some people like to put in a bunch of criteria and then expand it if they need to. It works either way. So once you have your criteria in here, we want to go to the map. But before we go to the map, questions, comments about the criteria stuff? Okay. So then to use the map, I'm just going to click on Map Search up here in the sub tab. That'll bring up the map. The map always starts at your office address. Now, because I didn't put a location, you'll notice it's bringing up everything in Intermountain MLS that matches my parameters, which is all over the state. So I'm just going to click on the plus to zoom into Meridian, since this property happens to be in Meridian. And I don't know exactly where it is, but I'm just going to kind of center it on Meridian here. So then, to focus the map on the subject property, right up at the top it says center map and zoom in on this address. So you enter the address of the subject property with the city and state, and then click the magnifying glass. It'll center the map and put a flag on there for the subject property. And then once you've done that, you put in the distance you want and hit search radius to draw your radius around the subject property. So I'm going to come here to where it says center map and zoom on this address and put in our address again. Unlike Easy CMA, it does not find the address for me. I've got to type the whole thing in there. Meridian, Idaho. So 1850 West Pintail Drive, Meridian, Idaho. So now I'm going to click on the magnifying glass. And now you'll notice I've got a little blue flag kind of by Franklin and Linder on the map. And then once I have that there, I'm going to do 1 mile and hit search radius. It's drawing a 1 mile radius around the property. So now the only properties that are finding are ones that match my parameters that are within a mile of the subject property. And so all the other ones that are outside of that area aren't being counted. It only if you hit search, it would bring up a list. Okay, and we'll do that in a minute. We just haven't got there yet, so that's all right. So questions about the mapping? Right, and you can still draw it if you want to. I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's going to be any properties right here. But if there were properties that were south of the interstate, I might want to draw it so I could be only north of the interstate. So, but I mean, typically the interstate's not going to be an issue. But I mean, you just want to remember. I mean, an appraiser is not going to find comps on one side of the interstate versus the other. They're going to be on the same side. So then to bring up my listings, I want to hit search. And that'll bring up those properties. So there are 18 that match the search. Now, of course, I'm not going to use 18 comparables. But then I would come here and find the ones I want to use. And I would select them either by clicking the checkbox on the spreadsheet, or when you're viewing the full detail, there's a checkbox right up here on the top right. Either way, you want to select the properties you're going to use. Now, I'm not going to select any yet. I'm actually going to sort mine by square footage, which is not the way I would pick comparables, but I'm going to sort mine this way. And the reason I'm doing this is I want to show you that our subject property is right here. So there's a subject property right there, 1850 West Pintail. Now, typically your subject property isn't going to come up in your search, because if they're already represented by another agent, you don't want to be talking to them. But people ask all the time how to get good at searching in Paragon, and this is the way to do it. Take a current active or current pending or recently sold, use that as your subject property and search for comparables, because then that subject property should come up in your results. So whether or not the way I entered my criteria and did my search works for somebody else doesn't matter, but the fact that the subject property is in my results means my criteria is valid. I mean, if you want to get good at shooting a bow and arrow and a rifle, you don't shoot bullets and arrows into the sky, you shoot at a target. In the MLS, a target is a subject property. And so had this property not come up in my search, then obviously I wasn't looking for listings similar to it. But here I am. Now, you'll notice there's only one that's larger than my subject property, because within a mile of where that property is, that's all there is. And that's fine. So I'm going to have comparables that are smaller than my subject property. Not a lot smaller. I mean, 1646, 1641, 1591, that's not a lot smaller, but it is smaller. So I'm just going to pick some comparables here. We'll do that many right there. So I've got a few different comparables selected there. And then once you've got the properties selected you want to use, to add them to Easy CMA, you just go here to the More menu, and there is Create an Easy CMA. Now I'll click on it and walk through this, but what it's going to do, when you click it, it's going to take you to Easy CMA, and you're going to be at the beginning, where you have to put in the subject property, verify the subject property information, but then when it goes to bringing the comps in, instead of it using the comp engine, it's going to bring your comps in. So just to show you, I'm going to click here on Create an Easy CMA. So here I am, and we're going to do an address search. And so it's 1850 West Pintail Drive. There's the location. I'm going to verify the property information, and now when I hit next, instead of using the 10 comps, it's using the 9 that I picked. So now it's got my 9 comparables, and when I hit generate CMA, all the information is based off those comparables. Instead of using ones from the comp engine, it's using the 9 that I picked for my search in Paragon. And this is probably the way that most agents do CMAs, even if they're not using Easy CMA, if they're using Cloud CMA, they're finding the comparables in Paragon and then exporting those to whatever program they're using. And if I wanted to, let's say I have my comparables and I wanted to use Cloud CMA, instead of going to More and doing Create an Easy CMA, if I go here to Actions, there's Cloud CMA, CMA, and that would copy in those properties into Cloud CMA. I mean, so just to show you how that would work, I'll click on it here. Now, similar to Easy CMA, it's going to take me to the beginning of a CMA. So let's say this is for Sally Seller. I'll put in the address again, 1850 West Pintail. It's going to attempt to pull information in from the tax records. Sometimes it's good about it, other times it's not. And then I'll hit fetch list. Well, there's those MLS numbers right here. So I'll hit fetch listings. And now it's bringing in my comparables, the 9 that I picked. And I could come here and hit customize report to customize it and create it in Cloud CMA. So whichever CMA program you're going to use, if you're able to search those comparables in Paragon, you can export them out of there to do that. So.
Does Cloud CMA require a separate subscription?
Nope, it's part of the MLS. In fact, and Cloud CMA is right here on the gateway as well.
Oh.
So, I mean, the big difference with Cloud CMA is Cloud CMA has a lot more options for the themes and the layouts. Whereas, and that's one of the differences. Easy CMA is supposed to be very straightforward, not a lot of options. Just here's the information, there's the report. With Cloud CMA, you have all these options to how it's going to look, how it's going to be laid out, and once you set it up and like save the layout the way you want, then you don't have to do it. You can just use the same one every time. But like just for example, if I go here to customize report, so it's got all these pre-included reports you can have in there. You can come here and choose the theme that you want to have, the layout for your comparables. Like one of the things it can include is online valuation analysis, which essentially is going to compare the Zestimate to the property prices. And then if there's reports you don't want, you can come here and remove them. You just click on the little minus there. But then when I hit publish report, it's going to create a report that either can be viewed as a PDF or it can be what they call the live view, which is more like a presentation type view that works on any size device. So it just depends on which report you want. I mean, again, this has a bunch of other pre-created things to help educate the seller, whereas Easy CMA is very cut and dry with the numbers, the data, the comps, and that's it. So it just depends on what what you'd want to have. And just to show you kind of a difference, if I go here to the comps, like here's the statistical layout, a map layout of the comps, a side-by-side layout you can view, which again is similar to Easy CMA. This just has a few more options there. Pricing information. I want to show you here's the online valuations. And so it just shows like on the solds and the pendings, the price and the Zestimate difference. One thing that's really useful with this is it's a way to help show sellers how inaccurate Zillow is. I mean, Zillow in Idaho, because we're non-disclosure, doesn't have sold data in their algorithm. In Oregon, Colorado, California, and disclosure states, the sold price is public record, so it's in their algorithm. And so when they're telling people values of homes, they're not using sold data to do that. And typically those online valuations tools don't tell sellers, at least very easily, that they're not using sold data to calculate that value because that information is not there. But like here we've got on the solds from 0.4 all the way to 3.1% difference. And on the actives, we've got 0.5% difference. So anyway, but that's Cloud CMA can include that. Whereas with the Easy CMA, it has, if I scroll back down here, it has the AVMs from Paragon and from RPR. So, and those both include sold data. Other questions or comments about Easy CMA? So if you haven't played with it before, I'd recommend playing with it. Put in a property, see how the results work with the comp engine, and then run your own search and see the difference. So anyway, that's Easy CMA. All right, so the second thing to look at this afternoon is setting up a contact for the Collab Center and setting up for searching. Now, before we go through and set someone up and kind of walk through that process, we want to talk about what the Collab Center is. And so I've got a fake contact I've already set up so I can show you what the Collab Center looks like. But this isn't something that you'd be able to go to until you set someone up. And it's something that agents really don't use. It's what your consumers use, your clients. So to set this up for someone, and we'll go through this in a few minutes, they have to be a contact in Paragon and they have to have a search assigned to them. So then once you have that done, you can turn on the Collab Center. So when they get emailed their initial email, they click on the link and it brings up the Collab Center. That's what we've got right here. And they're going to see the listings that match their search, and they can come here to match listings. They can come to a property, they can mark it as favorite, possible, or rejected. They can come here and leave a comment. This is nice. They also have the ability, when they view a property, clicking on the picture to see a more full, detailed version of it. And it's a client-friendly view, so they're not seeing agent remarks or listing agent information or anything. And then if they want, they can also come here and do their own search. So they can come here to property search, put the map where they want it to be, like maybe this person wants to search in Meridian. We'll zoom out here a little bit. They can come here and draw a shape. We'll go a little farther north. There we go. So come here and draw a shape. Maybe they want to look here. They can come here and change the parameters, like maybe their price is going to be from $450 to $600. And then if they want to save their search, they can save it. And then when they're going here to their saved searches, they're going to see the searches they've created as well as the search that you created for them. So that's what they see. What you see as the agent is, first thing, right here on the homepage of Paragon, you got the contact activity widget. So there's my fake person, Ken Adams. In the last 7 days, he's visited the Collab Center 7 times. If I hit his name, that brings up his contact record. I can see the properties he's marked as favorite, possible, rejected. So if I want to see the 8 properties he marked as favorites, I can click on that number 8, and that brings up those properties. And because I'm in the MLS, I'm viewing those properties as an agent, not as a consumer. I can come here to comments, see that he's left some comments. I can click reply to reply to that. I can click on the MLS number, brings up the full detail, and at the bottom of the full detail, I can reply to it. When can you see it? And then, of course, if I click on their name, I go to their contact record. If I go to searches, I can see the searches they created. So here's one that was just created. I just did. You saw me do that. If I click on the number of matches, just like before, that's going to bring up those listings. If I click on the name of the search, like maybe they said, hey, I made a search in Meridian, but I couldn't figure out how to eliminate new construction. So if I click on that North Meridian, that opens up their collab center and takes me into their search. Takes me into their collab center. And then I can go here to their saved searches. And there's that North Meridian. I can go here to edit search. And then I could come here to the filter, and under additional criteria, I could go here to age, and this is where we could only select the ages of existing homes and not choose the new construction. And so you can go there and see what they've done. And then if I click on their name, that brings up their contact record. Under the search activity, any search that has the little person icon next to it are searches they created on the Collab Center. Any other search are ones that I created. Under buyer activity, there are the searches that they created. I can click on a search, and then I can see what's the matches and all that's here. So everything they do in the Collab Center, you see in Paragon, they see it in the Collab Center. So we're going to walk through add a contact and then add their search and see how to turn that on for the Collab Center. And if you want to put a fake person in, that's fine, because we'll see how to turn it off. As long as their email address looks like it's a real email address, Paragon will let you save them in there. So to add a contact, you just go here to contacts and then add contact. First and last name are all that you need. And then an email address, of course, you want to put in there if you're going to send them an email. Now, you want to remember that each contact has to have their own email address. Can't be your email address. Can't be one another contact already has. Probably those are the biggest two reasons people have issues adding contacts: is they're using an email address that's already assigned to another contact, or they're using their email address, which it won't work with. It's got to use a unique one for that person. So first name, last name, and email address. Then you just click Save. And then over here on the left side, if you go to contact information, this shows their contact information. So if you needed to edit it or something, you could do that. To add their search, then you want to just go over here to buyer activity on the left, and add search is right there. Once searches are added, they're also under buyer activity. So again, once I've added them, I've got this tab here for their name, and then under buyer activity, we want to go to add search. When you go to add search, there's two ways to do it. You can add a new search, which we'll do in a second, or load an existing search. The load an existing saved search would bring up any saved searches you already have. So maybe you already talked to this person and created a search for them, and so now you just need to assign it to their contact record. So you can just pick it here and assign it. And you can have the same search assigned to multiple people if you want. To create a new search, you just click on Add New Saved Search, choose your property class, and then you want to enter the criteria. Now, I already have criteria popping up here because this was from our CMA we just did. So I want to remove this criteria. And the easiest way to remove it is to hit Clear All over on the right. But when you hit Clear All, you want to make sure the first thing you do is come back here to Listing Visibility Type and add MLS listing coming soon and up new construction, so that those listings can be sent to that person. If you don't have a visibility type in there, when you go to save it, it won't let you save it for a contact. So you can hit Clear All, or you can just click on the X's to remove everything and then leave the listing visibility type. because that's part of the default search anyway. So if you were creating this and hadn't done a search 10 minutes ago, it would come up and be blank like this. And that visibility type would already be there. So then you want to put in the criteria for your person. You really can basically search for just about anything. There are a few restrictions. First, you can't have more than 500 matches. So you can't just put active in Boise and leave it at that. You're going to have to narrow it down a little bit. Second, you can't use any dates. So you can't use a listing date. It's only going to send out the new matches, but you can't have dates. And then third, you can't have a specific agent or office. So you can't put in your office listings or your personal listings. But other than that, you can put whatever you want. So like under status, I'm going to come here and choose all the actives. I'm going to put in single family so I get ones that are less than 1 acre. And then we did Meridian before, so let's do Nampa this time. And maybe my price range is going to be $345 to $475. Maybe I have to have at least 4 beds, at least 2.5 baths. And 3-car garage, which is really going to narrow my search. And then I'm going to go here to age, and I don't want new construction. So I'm basically going to select everything but the new construction fields. So it's really going to drop my parameters, and you'll notice my count is only 5. And that's fine, because going forward, any new matches would be sent out. But right now, there's only 5 existing homes in Nampa that match those parameters. And just for fun, let's drop this down to 300 to see how much that changes. Still 5, so didn't change anything. And you can always come back later and edit the search if you need to. Maybe there's something in here that they wanted that you didn't put in there, like a feature item or something, but it's up to you, whatever you want to put in there. And then once you have the criteria here, then you just want to hit search, and that one would bring up the results. So then once the results come up, there are 2 big buttons up here on the left. Add to cart and save search. Add to cart you probably won't use. What that would do is let you add them to a listing card. And the reason you probably wouldn't use that is a listing card isn't a search. It would just save, in this case, these 5 properties and only notify them if these 5 properties had changes. So then to save the search, you just want to click on Save Search and give it a name. When you're doing it from a contact, it's going to put Save Search for the name of your contact. If you want to leave it there, that's fine. The only thing I'll use as a caveat here is on the Collab Center, they see the names of the searches. So Save Search for Ken Adams is not going to help them know what that is. So if they're going to have multiple searches set up, it might make it easier to have the name reflect something similar. So for example, maybe I want to call this Nampa existing homes 300 to 475. So then I just hit save, and that saves the search. And now that it's saved, it's right here under the buyer activity section. And they can have up to 10 searches assigned to them, whether that's you create 10 searches or you create 1 and they create 9 on the Collab Center. They can have up to 10. And then once that search is here, then you've got 3 choices here under automatic notifications. Off is the easiest to talk about. It means it's off. Nothing's happening. Email is not Collab Center. Email is sending them an email. They'll click on a link. They'll view the listings, and that's it. So they can't mark favorites. They can't leave comments. You have no way to have interaction with them. Of course, they can reply to your email, but that's about it. The links that get sent out, the links only work for 90 days. So if they want to look at a property from 4 months ago, they're out of luck. Whereas on the Collab Center, if they're on the Collab Center and they've marked a property as a favorite, when they're here on the Collab Center and they go to the favorites, they're going to see that favorite even if it's 6 months old. Even if the status has changed, it's still going to be a favorite. So email is not as interactive as Collab Center. And more people want that interactivity. I mean, that's why they download an app on their phone. They just don't want a list of properties. They want to be able to get more information. But just to show you how it would work, if you want to do email, you just click on email, and it pops up the notification options for the email they're going to get. It's got their email address up here. If you want to get a copy of it, there's this BCC me to get you a copy of it. Just make sure if you want to get a copy that you turn that on and that you want to get a copy. Because no one ever calls the MLS and says, hey Chris, how do I get more emails from Paragon? People call all the time saying I'm getting too many emails, and it's because this is checked all the time. Because again, if I've got a buyer that's a year away from making a purchase, I don't think I need a copy of that email they're getting right now. Later on, I could always come back and change that. That's the whole thing you want to remember is it's not like you're setting it and you can't change it. This isn't set it and forget it. When you set it, you can come back and make changes. I mean, again, 6 months from now, I might want to find out what they're looking at, but for the next 6 months, I've got other people to deal with. I don't need to be notified about this person. Then you have the subject. If you want to change it, you can. The date range is for a year. So the way the notifications work is they run for a year and then you have to renew them. So people always say they can't run indefinitely. They can, but you're renewing them every year. If you want to make it less than a year, like maybe for me, because the winter is a slow time, I have everyone's ending at the end of the calendar year. So I could come here and have this end on December 31st, which just means before the end of December, it would prompt me to renew it. And then you've got under notify, this is how quickly they're going to be notified. Immediately, as soon as there's a match, they get an email. Now the thing with immediately to remember is you want to think about how you are in your life with emails and coming from other businesses. So for example, if there's 5 matches in a day, they could potentially get 5 emails from you. Personally, if I got 5 emails from the same company in a day, I'm revisiting my relationship with that company and I'm probably clicking unsubscribe. So you want to keep that in mind if it's a search that might find multiple properties. Now, my search only had 5 matches. That's probably not going to happen. So immediately might not be a big deal. But if I had 35 properties that match this currently, there's the potential they could get multiple emails in a day. So if you only want them to get 1 a day, go to recurring and set your time frame. So I go here to set time frame. Let's say they want to get them at the end of business. So every day at 7 o'clock, it's going to run my search and send out new listings that match the search. So if it's a match on Monday and it has no changes, it won't be a match on Tuesday unless it's had a change. Yeah.
So it's only going to send
The new matches. Yeah, the existing ones, like the existing 5 that I already have, unless those 5 have a change, they're not going out. So they're only seeing the new matches. And then if I want to type a message in here for them, I can do that. You just want to remember that it's going to be the same message every time, so don't type things that are important, because after the 2nd or 3rd day, they're going to realize it's the same thing and quit reading it and just click on the link to view the properties. Then once I hit OK, that turns it on, and then at 7 o'clock, any new matches will go out. What will not go out are these 5. Paragon does not send the initial listings. That's why it tells you send the initial matches. Now, one of the reasons it doesn't is, let's imagine instead of 5 properties, I had 45 properties that matched my search. And I went through the list of 45 and I sent them 15 properties. If Paragon turned around and sent out all 45 that included the 15 that I sent before, that is super confusing. And so it only sends out the new matches. That's why it tells you you need to send the initial list. Now that's only for email. Collab Center, they're going to see all the matches. So if I wanted to send these initial listings, I just can click on click here or click on that number 5, and then I would just come here and click email and send those listings to them myself. So that's how email would work. Now it's either email or Collab Center. Collab Center has its own notification. So if I go here to Collab Center, now that's what I'm going to do. On Collab Center, if I go here to options, this is where I set up those same kind of options. Like I've got my date range. Again, maybe I want to make it end at the end of the calendar year. And then I've got client notifications. So again, maybe I don't want to do immediately. We'll do recurring. We'll do every day at 7 o'clock again. But then you also have agent notifications. So this is you being notified of them doing things. So they mark a favorite, they create a search, they leave a comment. However quickly you want to be notified is what you want to do here. Again, immediately is the default, but if you've got someone who's a year away buying a home, I don't think you need to be notified immediately when they mark a favorite. So it's up to you how you want that to be. But they default to immediately. And again, if you don't need to get a copy of the email they're getting, don't get a copy of it. I mean, people always like to say, well, I want to make sure it's going out. If it wasn't going out, you would know. First off, we would probably put a newsletter out, email saying that, and every other agent would be saying, Paragon's broken, it's not sending out emails. Because it's not going to be broken just for one person. Usually if that's happening, it's going to their spam. It's not that, and that's not Paragon's fault. All right, so then I hit OK to turn it on. That turns on the recurring email. So then here is that welcome message, and that's the initial email they're going to get. So you hit send welcome message, and you can type in a custom message if you want. You don't need to. If you hit preview, this shows you what the email they're going to get is like. It's going to have your company logo here at the top. Let's collaborate. There's how many listings. When they hit get started, that takes them to the Collab Center site. But right below, it's got the get the app today. There's their invitation code and links to download the app from the App Store. And then it's got your contact information below there, and then they're able to view it. So I'm going to hit send. It sends it off, and that's what the email looks like. Once you've sent it to them, then you've got this View Collab Center button here. That lets you view their Collab Center so you can see what they're looking at if you need to make changes to what they've done or whatever. And right here it says agent mode on their site, so you can tell that it's agent mode. And then I've got the Collab Center on my phone here, so I'm going to show you what the Collab Center looks like. So here's my phone. There's the Collab Center app. No, so Paragon Connect is black with a blue roof. Collab Center is white with a blue roof. So I'm going to tap on Collab Center. So when they download the app or you send them the link for it, that email that's sent, and I'll just bring it up the email up here so we can see it again. The email that's sent includes this invitation code. So they don't have to create a password. They don't have to create a login. The first time they open up that Collab Center app, it's going to ask for this code. So if they've got that email that you just sent them, they click on the link to download it from the App Store. They go back to the email, copy and paste that link from that code, and now they're in the Collab Center. And it's connected to you and to their Collab Center account. And so here they can go view updates. And then just like we saw on the site, they can come here, tap on a property. Up here at the top, they've got favorite, possible, rejected, comments. And like this request is showing, that would go to the listing agent. And not, excuse me, not the listing agent, that would go to their agent. So nothing goes to the listing agent, it's just going to their agent. And they've got all that information there about the property. They also have the ability to share this listing. They could text it, leave a comment, email the listing. The other thing they can do in the Collab Center app that's really cool, which people love to do on their apps for real estate, is find properties near them. So even, let's say my person's searches are set up in Nampa, but here we are in Boise, and they want to look at a property in Boise. If they click on this little location icon right here, that brings up the map where they are and looks for active residential listings, and then lets them see them. So even though I'm not looking at properties in Boise, I'm in Boise, I can pull up the Collab Center and I can see those properties. And so that location search lets them do that. Now, of course, the Collab Center app isn't going to work outside of Intermountain MLS. So in that instance, another app from a national portal is going to work a lot better than the Collab Center. But one big difference with Collab Center versus those other apps is coming soons. Any coming soon listing out there is on the Collab Center and visible to agents in Paragon up to 2 weeks before it's out on other websites. And so if you've got a buyer that's looking for properties and they want to have everything out there as quick as possible, the Collab Center is going to be faster than anything else they can get on their own. So that's the Collab Center app that's out there. Questions or comments about that, about the app? So yeah, if you want to practice with the app, you just have to set yourself up as a contact, use a different email address, send yourself that initial welcome message, then download the app. I mean, that's what I had to do for my fake person here. So anyway, but the benefit of doing that is then you're able to kind of give a testimonial to your clients how you've used it, how it works, instead of just saying, well, I think it does this because you're using it. Other questions or comments about the Collab Center?
Is there a phone app for the agent of that?
So it just the Paragon Connect, the Paragon Connect app. Yep. And if you have Paragon Connect, let me see if I think I'm logged in here as my training account. So if you've got Paragon Connect set up and you've got buyers and sellers set up in the Collab Center, when you bring up Paragon Connect, then you're going to see favorite, possible, or rejected, and comments right here on them. So like this person's got 4 favorites. If I tap on that, now I'm seeing those 4 favorite listings they marked. So when you're in Paragon Connect, you'll see that information. So just kind of like the contact activity widget on the regular Paragon homepage, Paragon Connect, you see it here. All right, so that's the Collab Center. The other side of the Collab Center to talk about, the last one to talk about this afternoon, is the Collab Center for sellers. Now, unless you have a listing, this isn't one you can practice. And in your handout, this one has the most screenshots because you can't practice it without a listing, which I'm going to have to log in here differently to show it to you because I don't have listings. I work at the MLS. But what the Collab Center for sellers lets you do is lets the seller find out what's going on with their property. And so I'm going to log in here differently. Let's see. All right, so I'm going to use the property we used as our subject property here. So same kind of process, you add your seller as a contact. And I'm going to save that person. When you have a listing and you save a contact, it asks you if you want to associate a property with that contact, meaning they're your seller. So I'm going to associate a property. There's the property on Pintail. And then once that's associated, then you have to enable the sell side and then send them the welcome email. Kind of similar to what we did with the buyer on the Collab Center. So then send the welcome email. Now my fake person has opted out, so when I hit send, there's a nice opt-out email there, opt-out message. But you'll notice it's a very similar email, but here's your listing. View your property, get the app today. And then once you have that turned on, you can enable an email report. So different from the Collab Center where you have to put in specific times, for the report that goes out to sellers, it'll go out daily in the morning. Weekly, it goes out on Thursdays. So you can't pick another day, you can't pick another time. They try to make it really simple. And then if they're turned on for the Collab Center for sellers, they can hit view site. And so now here's their property. And then it shows them how many listing views, open houses. This property has only been on the market 6 days, so the last 7 days works for us. But here we've got agent and buyer views. Undecided, favorite, possible, rejected, all from the Collab Center. Now, it isn't going to give them information outside of the MLS and the Collab Center. So they're not going to see, hits on other websites, but that's fine because these hits are from people that have given their contact information to an agent and are being notified about properties. So it's not just looky-loos on some website that aren't going to buy a house. These are people that contacted an agent that said, agent, here's my criteria, send me listings. So this one has had 227 agent views, 113 client views. It's been recommended twice by agents to their buyers. 433 agent searches, 6 buyer searches, meaning 6 searches buyers created in the Collab Center. This is 433 searches in Paragon. 8 comments have been left. 496 times it's been emailed. And then they can come down here to competition and they can see competitive properties nearby. And as they scroll down, they can see these properties. Like for example, here's one a little farther down the road. I can click on it. And because this is the MLS, it's giving them the sold price. So they can see the sold price of similar properties in the location where they are at. And they can zoom in here. They can click on a property and see the information, as well as scrolling down and just viewing a list of those properties. And so it's a great way to help motivate the seller to price it competitively if they've had it on the market for a while and they're able to see what other properties are selling for. Because your seller wants that information and they're going to need to get it typically from their agent since it's not public record information. And so if you've got them set up for the Collab Center for sellers, they can easily come here and see what other homes are selling for, and then maybe that helps them make a better decision to price competitively with their property. So that, and then of course, just like the consumer that has the buyer, they can use the app for the Collab Center. They can do the near me search and find properties near them, but it's all about their current property that's listed. So that is the Collab Center for sellers. Comments or questions about that or the Collab Center for buyers? All right, so I'm going to close this. I'm going to disable it, and I'm going to remove the listing from this person. And then I'm going to remove the contact that I just added to this person's account. All right, so now that contact is gone. Any comments or questions about anything we've talked about today, or even things unrelated to what we talked about today about the MLS? All right, well, that's all I've got for you guys this afternoon. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.